Welcome back to Morning Joe. Live look at the Capitol, where the State of the Union took place last night. And joining us this morning is Speaker Emerita and Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi of California. Madam Speaker, it's always good to have you on the show. I'm curious, could the president have drawn a starker contrast last night in his speech between him and his predecessor? He mentioned his predecessor many times, and you really could see the elephant in the room, if you know what I mean, and the elephant, of course, being Donald Trump. What did you make of the Republican response to everything that the president had to say? And if you didn't have a chance to actually watch the Republican response, I'm even talking about the Republican response in the room.
Well, good morning, Mika, and it's wonderful to be with you on International Women's Day, and I congratulate you and thank you for your leadership. And now you're globally doing all of this. And I think the president, in his remarks last night, was honoring women in a very significant way in terms of policy. What really, frankly, we were watching last night was the president, his command of the issues, his forcefulness in how he presented it all. Whatever the decision was on the part of the Republicans to respond or not was their decision. But what we were concerned about was how the American people responded to President Biden last night, and they did in a very positive way. The response when the president came in, we were so excited to see him. His welcome was overwhelming. What was more important is after he spoke, it was even more overwhelming. And what we saw is what we will continue to see. A message is only as important as it is repeated and reinforced, not only by the principal, but by the members of Congress as well throughout the country. So it was a triumphant evening, regardless of the Republican response.
Well, the Democrats in the room were certainly charged up and boldly and loudly supporting the president. What does the Democratic Party need to do moving forward after a great night like last night?
Yeah, I think it's really important, thank you for asking, to have reinforcement of the message. As the president indicated very clearly, the State of the Union was solid. That is to say, the jobs are up to the tune of, what did he say, 15 million, that's, and still counting. Wages are up, unemployment is down, inflation is down, but we still have to do more. So I think what is important about the message is we're proud of what has been done, but elections are about the future, and he talked about what needs to be done next. And that's the message we must reinforce. Some of what comes next springs from what we have done in terms of the infrastructure bill and the CHIPS bill and the rescue package and the PACT Act and the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, in terms of saving the planet and reducing the cost of prescription drugs. But more needs to be done. So I think the message of where we go from here, the president was very clear in the distinction he made as to they want to take us backward in terms of even our personal liberties. We want to go forward in terms of opportunity for all Americans, especially the middle class and those who aspire to it.
I want to ask you about Speaker Mike Johnson. You have daughters. I have daughters. I saw a lot of familiar eye-rolling happening last night during the president's speech. He was eye-rolling a lot. But I'm curious, working alongside now as a member of Congress, seeing him as Speaker, a position that you held twice, making history. Yeah. Do you think there's room for compromise on foreign aid or any of these pressing issues?
Well, I certainly hope so. We are moving forward to keep government open, and that is a compromise. And there has to be a recognition that we have a Democratic president, we have a Democratic Senate, and we have a Republican House. So there has to be a negotiation, and there has to be compromise. And so far, well, yesterday, we passed legislation. I mean, this week we passed legislation to keep some of the government open, and now we'll go forward with that. And I'm optimistic about that. But what really is necessary right now is for us to have the support to go to Ukraine, to have the humanitarian assistance go to Gaza, to have the package, the security package that the president had that addresses the security, keeping our borders secure, as well as keeping our democracy secure. And that is really what has to happen next. And I'm optimistic that there's enough support on the Republican side to get that done. And we have to do it in a timely fashion. So by the time we leave here for Passover and Easter, we can rejoice in Easter, the glorious feast that is my favorite. Rejoice that we have helped people throughout the world to protect democracy, to protect ourselves at home, and to protect and honor our commitment to the people of Ukraine.
Madam Speaker, the cameras caught you last night speaking to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Please, if you will, share that conversation if you'd like. But setting that aside, we also want to get your take as to McConnell, who has been so sharply critical of Donald Trump in the past, but yet this week endorsed him anyway.
Well, again, my conversation with Leader McConnell was personal in terms of extending my sympathy on the loss of a family member. So sad. And I know Elaine, and I've met many of her sisters, and I know how close they all are. And it's quite a sad situation. In terms of Mitch, politically, now we're talking, he and I have had a parallel time, 20 years. I was Speaker or leader, and approximately the same time he's been leader on their side. But before that, we were both the top, I was the top Democrat, he was the top Republican in his body on the foreign ops. And so on foreign cooperation, all of that, we worked together. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we didn't. But you see how strong he has been on Ukraine, knows what. The sad part of it is that Mitch McConnell knows full well that the president was guilty of a crime on January 6th. He knew that what was happening was wrong in terms of this beautiful Capitol being assaulted, but not just the physical building. What happens here, our Constitution, our ability to honor our oath of office, to have a peaceful transfer of power. He even spoke to that eloquently on the floor, but then he wouldn't allow a bipartisan commission to be formed. Do me a personal favor. Don't vote for something to investigate this. We had our own January 6th. We were not going to let this go unanswered. And so for him to know how bad the president's predecessor was on all of this, and then come to the conclusion that he would endorse him when we thought he was going to convict him. The word was he was close to conviction, and now he's endorsing. It's really very, very sad. And it's a sad conclusion to a career of strategic. I mean, mostly we didn't agree, but I was respectful of the view that he brought forth and how we could work together. It's really a person, in my view, a sad professional tragedy that he had to come around. Why would he do such a thing? Perhaps he'll explain it to the world. But in the meantime, we have an election coming up. We have a great president. He made he showed command of the issues in a way that his predecessor wouldn't have the faintest idea to do. We're legislators working with a president to sign a bill, but also to inspire a vision. And the contrast could not be greater. The other side has no knowledge. The only thing they know how to do is do tax breaks to the wealthiest people in our country. 83% of the benefits going to the top 1%, as the president said last night, $2 trillion to the national debt. And what is one of the arguments that we have to keep government open? Are we going to feed the children? Oh, do we have enough money to feed the children? For WIC, for Women, Infant, and Children. So the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans could not be clearer. The fact that we need to work together is essential. That's what we owe the American people. But the vision that the president put forth, the knowledge that he demonstrated on it, the judgment that he brings with it, the empathy that is in his heart for America's working families. It was just remarkable. And now it must be reinforced, so people know, so that they can make their decision about the future.
Absolutely.
All right. Madam Speaker, thank you so much. We remember January 6th, and we remember your extraordinary leadership on January 6th, even if the predecessor believes it was Nikki Haley who was Speaker of the House. We thank you so much for your service to America and for being with us this morning.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you all. Happy Women's International Day, International Women's Day.
All right.
You too, Joe.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I know who I'm with. Yes. And in fact, we're going to talk about that now. So thank you so much, Madam Speaker.